Hello, today we'll be talking about the geological distribution of the graptolites. The graptolites are called as facies fossils. You may be wondering what is a facies fossil? Facies fossils are the fossils which are typically found in one particular rock type. For example, graptolites are always found in the black shales, because of which, because of their specificity to the black shales, they are called as facies fossils. The graptolites were a group of colonial animals that inhabited the Paleozoic seas, often in very great abundance. Their remains can be found as small, elongate means in the dimensions of about 3 millimeter to it can be as large as a meter. Skeletons of thin collagenous periderm forming simple, linear or complexly branched colonies. Each branch is composed of a linear succession of interconnecting tubes. These interconnecting tubes are called as theca. They originate from a single conical individual, and that conical individual is called as secula. Graptolites are of value in the study of the stratigraphy of many Ordovician and Silurian deposits. That means paleontologically they are much significant in the Ordovician and Silurian rocks, and that particular trait is fairly persistent worldwide. Why? Because of their abundance, wide geographical distribution and rapid evolution. Benthic graptolites appeared in the Middle Cambrian, becoming extinct in the Upper Carboniferous, whereas the planktonic graptolites, they ranged from the earliest Ordovician to the Middle Devonian. Actually, as far as the graptolites are concerned, I will be telling you is that the benthic forms were the forms that remain to the substrate, they do not move. Any benthic animal is an animal that remains in its own place, it does not moves, and if it moves over a very short distance. So, the one that does not move at all is called as sessile benthos, the one that moves to some distance is called as vigile benthos. But those that move fairly to a great distances by swimming or floating, they are all called as the planktonic forms. So, planktonic graptolites, they ranged from the earliest Ordovician to the Middle Devonian. Now, let us talk about the geological distribution. And in geological distribution, first comes their occurrence in Cambrian. In Britain, the earliest graptolites occur in tremadoc beds, where we find the branching forms of the Bryograptus and the Clonograptus. As far as their distribution into the Ordovician is concerned, the graptolites are in the Aaronic division, are mainly uniserial forms without a virgula in the wall of the common canal and are often branched. The most characteristic genera are Didymograptus, Tetragrammatus, Dichograptus and Phylograptus. Clonograptus survives from the Cambrian into the lower part of the Aaronic. In the Landilo, Didymograptus is still found and is fairly common in the lower part of the formation. Other important genera in the Landilo are Dicelograptus, the Triserial Diplograptus and Climacograptus and Nemagraptus, Dicranograptus, which now appear for the first time. In the Bala beds, the biserial genera Diplograptus, Climacograptus and Dicranograptus become much more abundant, and with them occur Leptograptus and Plurograptus. Then comes Silurian. The only genera which pass up from the Ordovician to the Silurian are Climacograptus, Diplograptus and Retiolitis, and nearly all these species in the two systems are different. So that between the Ordovician and Silurian there is a great break in the graptolitic succession. As a whole, the Silurian formations are characterized by the uniserial genera Monograptus, Restritus and Syrtograptus, which appear first in the lower Silurian. In the lower part of the Llandovery, the genera Diplograptus and Climacograptus are fairly abundant, but they become extinct in the Terranon, and in the Wenlock and Ludlow beds of only forms are Monograptus, Syrtograptus and Retiolitis. The last traces of the Graptolites occur in the Downtonian beds, but they are too imperfect for determination. Then comes the stratigraphic significance of the Graptolites. In the Ordovician and Silurian, and to a lesser extent in the Devonian, Graptolites are perhaps the most important fossils for global correlation. In the Silurian especially, they are particularly useful, and it has been calculated that the mean duration of a graptolite biozone is less than half a million years. In work done around Wenlock Ludlow boundary, that boundary is something that occurs at mid Silurian, the biozone duration is closer to 1/4 of a million years. The reason for this is great utility is that graptolites evolved very quickly, yet often had a worldwide distribution in the tropical plankton realms. The mean duration of a graptolite species in the Silurian is under half a million years. Only hominids are comparable. Graptolites are used in several different ways in the relative dating of the lower Paleozoic strata. The assemblage biozone depends for its recognition upon a unique association of species. The total range biozone, that is acrozone, depends upon the known total temporal range of an individual species. Evolutionary lineages are also used where they are understood with some certainty. The change from one species to another occurred at a unique point in time. Finally, mathematical methods can be applied to the first and the last appearances of species in different parts of the world. When these approaches are used in connection with the information from other groups such as conodonts, acritarchs and chitinozoans, an extremely powerful corrective tool gets emerged. Then comes the evolutionary changes in the graptolites. 4 successive evolving and overlapping faunas are known, leading from the Dendroidea through the family Anisograptidae to the Graptoloidea, including Dichograptina, Diplograptina and Monograptina. In the change from anisograptid to dichograptid, we see a reduction in the number of stripes and hence in the number of theca also. A reduction in the thickness of the cortical layers of the periderm, loss of birthae that is typical of the dendroids, and the beginning of a tendency towards a scandent position of the stripes. That is, they tend to come upwards in the later species rather than hanging down as earlier species. In diplograptid fauna, This last tendency reaches a peak with two stripes back to back as in Diplograptus and Climacograptus, enclosing the nema for much of the rhabdosome in length. In the monograpted fauna, only one stripe remained in most forms, which was uniserial scandent, although some did develop branches or become coiled. All monograptids probably developed from a form with relatively simple theca, which occurs first in the latest Ordovician. This row of simple theca uniserially arranged on a single scandent stripe had the potential to develop thecal hooks, spines, enrolled tubes and isolated theca, whereas the rhabdosome as a whole had less potential other than to curve, coil or develop branches. This was the geological distribution and some ecological aspects of the graptolites. We will be discussing more of the forms, more of the taxa, their geological distribution and morphology in the coming lectures to come. And till then, thank you very much.